You think silence is weakness, the absence of presence, the void where power slips away. But the truth is the exact opposite. Silence is the crown the queen wears when words are too cheap to touch her throne. In the realm of attraction, silence is not emptiness. It is gravity. It is the force that bends others toward her without a gesture, without a sound, without a plea. The one who masters silence does not need to demand. She embodies inevitability. In every social sphere, noise surrounds us. Endless chatter, explanations, and attempts to fill the void with validation. Yet beneath that clamor, there exists a presence stronger than any speech. The archetype of the silent oracle. She is the one who speaks most when she says nothing, for her silence is not passive. It is a mirror reflecting the soul of the one who dares to face her. The unprepared grow restless before her calm, unable to tolerate the abyss her stillness reveals in themselves. The psychology is ruthless. When a woman withholds words, she denies the ego of its usual nourishment. Jung observed that projection thrives where the unknown resides. Silence is fertile ground for projection. Those around her will fill her quiet with their own longing, fears, and desires. Her silence is not a void but a canvas. Men will paint their fantasies across it. Rivals will cast shadows of envy upon it. And yet, she remains unmoved because silence has crowned her beyond their reach. Think of the queen who does not rush to defend herself against gossip, who does not bend to prove her worth in conversation. The world leans in unsettled. What does she think? What does she know? Her restraint creates hunger while constant speech would only dull the appetite. Here lies the paradox. The less she gives, the more they crave. Silence becomes magnetic, charged with tension, shimmering with unanswered questions. But there is danger in silence too, for those who have not learned to wield it consciously. It can slip into withdrawal, avoidance, or suppression. The difference between power and fear is posture. The queen sits upright in her silence. She does not cower in it. She holds her gaze, lets time stretch, and allows others to stumble into the pit their words have dug. Her silence is not absence. It is presence intensified, concentrated, distilled into something undeniable. Consider how quickly the uncentered rush to fill a pause. They babble, they justify, they plead. Their fear of emptiness exposes their lack of sovereignty. Meanwhile, silence tests them. It shows who needs noise to feel alive and who has learned to find life in stillness. And you, if you have ever wondered why some women command attention without effort, it is because they have learned this secret. They carry silence as a crown, not as a shackle. Jung knew the psyche is haunted by shadow, and silence summons that shadow to the surface. The chatter of daily life buries it, but the void draws it out. Those who sit with the silent oracle cannot escape themselves. Their unconscious rises like mist in the quiet air. That is why people feel unsettled in the presence of a woman who does not rush to reassure them. She does not protect them from their own reflection. She lets them drown or swim in the waters of their psyche. And yet this crown is not about manipulation. It is not about cold games or distant cruelty. It is about mastery of self, the refusal to be dragged into noise that diminishes. Silence becomes a sanctuary where she remains sovereign, unshaken by the storms of others. To practice this power is to reclaim time, breath, and energy. It is to say, I will not waste my voice where it is not honored. I will not scatter my presence where it is not worthy. Imagine now the woman who walks into a room and does not rush to speak. Eyes turn. The air thickens. The chatter continues but bends around her. She holds her silence not as emptiness but as gravity, and soon the loudest voice falters, aware of her listening. This is attraction not built on display but on restraint. It is the mystery of the unseen drawing the world closer, begging to be revealed. But revelation does not come quickly. The queen's crown is not handed to the impatient. And here lies the test for you. Can you sit with your own silence without feeling the urge to fill it? Can you hold space without rushing to prove yourself through noise? Every pause you master is a step into sovereignty. Every moment of restraint is a sharpening of presence. This is the first threshold, and beyond it lies something far greater, the deeper alchemy where silence does not merely attract but transforms. For silence is not only a crown, it is also a blade. There is a moment when silence shifts from crown to weapon. It happens when those around her realize they can no longer control the narrative with noise. They attempt to provoke, to pull words from her lips, but each attempt dissolves into the void she guards. The queen does not resist, she simply withholds. And in that withholding, she unmasks the hunger of others. The ones who sought validation grow restless, for silence denies them the stage they crave. They reveal themselves not through her words, but through their desperation to escape her stillness. This is why silence unsettles the fragile ego. It is a mirror that cannot be broken. The ego thrives on reaction. Without it, it gasps for air. The man who expects flattery begins to question himself. The rival who anticipates retaliation finds only her still gaze. They cannot anchor themselves in her because she refuses to be their anchor. Instead, they are left adrift in their own insecurities. The power of silence lies not in what it hides, but in what it exposes. Psychologically, this dynamic awakens the shadow in others. Jung taught that the unconscious projects itself onto what it cannot comprehend. Silence is incomprehensible to the unintegrated mind. It offers no obvious signal, no confirmation of worth, no clear direction. Thus the shadow leaps forward, painting her quiet with their own fears. She must be arrogant, she must be rejecting, she must be unattainable. Yet all along, she has simply chosen not to play their game. The crown rests heavier, and she carries it with poise. But silence does more than unsettle, it creates space for the sacred. In a world drowning in noise, the one who holds silence becomes a vessel of depth. She embodies the high priestess seated before the veil, holding mysteries that cannot be rushed. Her silence does not speak of absence, but of secrets not meant for every ear. She teaches that not all knowledge should be broadcast, not every emotion should be dissected under harsh light. Mystery is not deception, it is dignity. The unseen nourishes desire more than the overly explained. Think of water held in a vessel. If poured out recklessly, it evaporates, but when contained, it deepens, reflecting the sky like a mirror. So too with the woman who guards her silence. Every withheld word deepens the well of her presence. Others lean closer, thirsting, but she gives only when she chooses. This is not manipulation, it is discernment. Not every soul has earned the right to drink from the well. The queen knows her waters are sacred, and silence protects them from being wasted on the undeserving. Here lies the emotional tension. Silence tests not only others but herself. To sit with silence requires confronting her own inner restlessness. The urge to explain, to reassure, to soften rejection, these temptations creep in, yet she resists. She allows discomfort to breathe both in her and around her, for in that discomfort lies purification. What remains when words are stripped away? Authenticity. What endures when noise is silenced? Truth. She discovers that silence is not a cage but a threshold. Only those who can bear it may cross. And this is where attraction deepens into reverence. A man confronted with a woman who wields silence with sovereignty cannot help but feel both awe and unease. She is no longer simply desirable, she is archetypal. She becomes the oracle who holds keys to mysteries he cannot demand. He is forced to approach with respect, for silence does not bow. She does not chase, she chooses. Every moment he spends in her presence becomes a silent negotiation. Will he rise to meet her depth, or retreat into the safety of noise? But silence does not mean disconnection. In fact, the paradox is that true intimacy is born from it. When two souls sit in quiet without fear, when presence itself becomes enough, that is when masks fall away. No performance, no seduction, no words meant to impress, only essence. Silence, when shared, becomes sacred communion. It transforms attraction from surface glitter into something elemental, almost spiritual. The queen who wears silence not only draws others near, she elevates the quality of the bond itself. To practice this power is to begin small. Let the pause linger in conversation. Resist the urge to explain your worth. Allow others to reveal themselves in the gap your silence creates. Watch how quickly masks crumble when faced with stillness. Silence is a sieve through which only the genuine can pass. And though the world may rush to fill it, you need not. Each pause you hold sharpens your presence until silence becomes less a technique and more a way of being. Yet every crown carries a hidden weight, and silence carries hers quietly. For there comes a moment when silence must shift again, from crown to blade to sanctuary. That moment lies ahead, when silence ceases to be simply a tool of attraction and becomes the pathway to liberation itself. For silence does not only reveal others, it reveals you. And the truths uncovered there are both beautiful and terrifying. Silence, when held long enough, ceases to be an external gesture and begins to echo inward. It no longer serves merely as a crown for others to notice or a blade to cut through their illusions. It becomes as a mirror pressed against the soul, demanding that she face her own depths. Many fear this stage. Noise can be armor, even self-created noise. When stripped away, silence exposes wounds that speech once concealed. And yet this is the very point at which sovereignty is born. The courage to hear what lies beneath the surface. For in silence, the shadow stirs. Old voices rise, the inner critic whispering inadequacy, the memories of rejection that beg for justification, the fear of being unseen. Jung knew that individuation requires confrontation with the shadow, and silence is the threshold where it waits. To wield silence outwardly but collapse inwardly is to wear the crown only for show. True mastery requires sitting still while the psyche roars, letting its chaos pass like storms across the sky without flinching. Only then does silence become strength rather than disguise. The silent oracle archetype teaches this discipline. She is not detached because she fears intimacy. She is detached because she has walked through the underworld of her own mind and emerged unbroken. Her stillness is not coldness. It is clarity. The chaos of others does not sway her because she has already faced the chaos within. Silence for her is not emptiness but fullness, brimming with knowledge of both her darkness and her light. To embody her is to be unpossessable, because she does not need external affirmation to hold her form. Consider how magnetic such presence becomes. When a woman is no longer rattled by absence of words, when she does not scramble to justify or explain, when she does not fear the quiet between exchanges, she radiates a rare kind of freedom. Others sense it unconsciously. They lean toward her not because she flatters them, but because she reveals them. Her silence reflects their own hunger back at them, and in that hunger they recognize how bound they still are. She, on the other hand, has loosened her chains. But the path to this liberation is not smooth. Silence, in its raw form, feels like abandonment to the wounded child within. The child craves reassurance, needs to be heard, pleads for words to soothe the ache of isolation. And so, when you attempt to hold silence, you may feel panic rise in your chest, as if you are about to vanish. Yet this panic is illusion. It is the ego screaming for survival. If you endure it, if you breathe through it without breaking, you discover a deeper self beneath the child, a self that does not beg but reigns. This is where silence transforms from strategy into essence. It is no longer about attracting others or unsettling rivals. It becomes the ground of being. You learn to hear subtler voices, the intuition that stirs when noise is gone, the ancestral wisdom that flows when distractions fall silent. The queen who wears silence is not mute, she is attuned. Her words, when she chooses them, are not thrown like pebbles into the sea of chatter but dropped like stones that ripple through the depths. Every syllable carries weight because it emerges from silence. Imagine the power of such restraint. In a heated argument, she does not rush to retaliate. She lets silence stretch until the other's fury falters, exposing its hollowness. In romance, she does not flood the connection with endless words. She allows mystery to breathe, pulling desire tighter. In leadership, she does not scramble to prove authority. Her quiet presence commands more than declarations ever could. Silence becomes her constant ally, shaping her world without visible effort. And yet this silence is not isolation. To be silent does not mean to be unreachable. It means to speak only when the voice aligns with the soul. It means to offer presence instead of performance. It means to value depth over display. In this way, silence teaches discernment. Not every situation requires words. Not every confrontation deserves explanation. Not every desire must be spoken to be real. Silence carves space for choice, and in that choice lies sovereignty. Here you face the mirror moment. How often have you betrayed yourself by speaking when silence would have served? How often have you rushed to fill the void out of fear that your stillness would be misunderstood? Notice the tension there. For the fear that silence makes you invisible is the very chain that binds you. The paradox is this: the moment you stop fearing invisibility, you become unforgettable. Silence ceases to erase you, it engraves you. And this engraving is only the beginning. Beyond attraction, beyond sovereignty, silence holds an even deeper promise: transformation. It is the womb of rebirth, the still darkness where identity dissolves and reforms. Those who dare to sit long enough in that fertile void emerge with a power beyond mere magnetism. They become untouchable not because they are distant, but because they have found a center no noise can shake. What waits on the other side of that silence is what few dare to discover. Silence, when it ripens to its fullest form, begins to reshape not only the self but the field around her. It moves from inner mirror to outer alchemy. Those in her orbit feel it first as tension, then as intrigue, and finally as compulsion. They are drawn not because she entertains them, but because she refuses to dilute herself. This refusal is radical in a culture addicted to constant output, endless chatter, and the desperate noise of self-promotion. The queen who crowns herself with silence becomes rebellion embodied. The psyche responds instinctively to such rebellion. Jung observed that archetypes seize the imagination because they touch collective memory. Silence as archetype touches something ancient. It recalls the priestesses in temples who guarded the mysteries, the oracles who spoke only in riddles, the queens who withheld until the moment was ripe. Humanity is wired to lean into what is withheld. What is hidden awakens desire more deeply than what is flaunted. Thus, her silence is not absence, it is initiation. Each moment of quiet is an invitation to cross a threshold into depth. But thresholds test. Those who crave easy access will stumble, frustrated that their noise gains no entry. They may accuse her of arrogance, call her cold, dismiss her as aloof. Yet their accusations reveal more about their own hunger than about her essence. For silence unmasks entitlement. It shows who believes they are owed access and who understands that intimacy is earned. The crown grows heavier, but it also gleams brighter, for she is no longer merely attractive. She is untouchable. She chooses what and who is worthy of her voice. This dynamic becomes especially potent in the realm of attraction. A man conditioned to expect instant validation meets silence and is forced into confrontation with himself. Does he rise, deepen, and respect the mystery? Or does he retreat, blaming her for the discomfort he cannot endure? Either way, silence refines the field. It filters. It burns away the shallow, leaving only those capable of standing in the presence of a woman who will not beg to be seen. This filtration is not cruelty, it is necessity, for the queen knows that not every gaze deserves her. Consider the lovers who rush to fill every pause with chatter. Their connection becomes shallow, padded with words but empty of substance. Contrast this with the rare bond where silence feels alive, where eyes meet and speak volumes unspoken, where stillness becomes intimacy, not void. In that quiet, hearts synchronize and the sacred hum of presence awakens. Attraction shifts into reverence and desire ceases to be consumption. It becomes communion. This is the secret too many miss. Silence, when shared, is the deepest form of closeness. Yet wielding silence is not without danger. When misunderstood, it can harden into walls rather than thresholds. The queen who mistakes silence for withdrawal may lose her power to connect. The difference lies in intention. True silence is open, receptive, vibrating with life. False silence is brittle, built from fear, reeking of avoidance. The crown must be worn consciously, else it corrodes. To embody silence as sovereignty, she must remain present, even in her restraint. Her silence must feel alive, not dead. Magnetic, not repelling. This distinction marks the difference between isolation and magnetism. Here emerges the paradox that only those who walk the path understand. Silence does not distance, it draws closer. The absence of noise forces the soul to lean in, to strain to hear what cannot be said. It awakens imagination, stirring archetypal hunger. For silence is fertile soil and the unconscious rushes to plant its seeds there. People will see in her what they long for most, project upon her what they cannot integrate. She becomes mirror, muse, mystery, all while saying nothing. Such is the gravity of her crown. But silence is not endless withholding. At times it must break, and when it does, it carries the weight of thunder after drought. A single word offered after long restraint can alter the course of desire, shift the balance of power, or pierce straight to the soul. This is why the queen does not scatter her words. She knows their value. She lets silence charge them, saturate them with meaning. By the time she speaks, her voice carries the authority of inevitability. The crowd listens, not because she demands, but because silence has prepared them to receive. And what of you? How do you bear your silence? Do you fear it, racing to fill it with noise? Or do you honor it, letting it crown you with authority? Every pause you protect sharpens your magnetism. Every silence you endure deepens your presence. But the truest test comes when silence no longer feels like a tactic, but like your nature. For then, silence ceases to be a tool of attraction and becomes something far greater. A path to liberation, to individuation, to becoming untouchable in your sovereignty. The next threshold waits there, where silence is no longer about how others see you, but about how you see yourself. And the truths revealed in that stillness are not always gentle. They are fierce, demanding, and yet they are the very forge where your crown is reforged into gold. There comes a point when silence stops being strategy and becomes sanctuary. It is no longer worn merely as a crown for others to admire, or as a blade that slices through noise, but as the sacred ground where the queen herself rests. In this stage, silence transforms into inner throne room. Here, she withdraws not out of fear, not as rejection, but as reverence, for herself, for her essence, for the space where soul and shadow converse without interruption. In that sanctuary, the voice of the unconscious grows louder. Jung spoke of individuation as the process of becoming whole, and silence is its hidden workshop. For without the clamor of external validation, the psyche can reveal what has long been buried. Old desires surface, long silenced grief rises, forgotten strengths awaken. It is here that she discovers she is not defined by the projections of others, not imprisoned by their expectations. In silence, she reclaims herself piece by piece, until wholeness no longer feels like a dream but a memory returning. Yet this sanctuary is not always peaceful. Silence has a way of calling forth the demons she has spent years avoiding. The memories of betrayal, the sting of rejection, the wounds of abandonment, They do not vanish. They echo. To remain still while these ghosts rise is excruciating but necessary. For silence does not destroy them, it reveals them. And once revealed, they lose their grip. The queen who endures this crucible learns that her sovereignty is not the absence of pain but the mastery of it. She wears silence as proof that she can stand unbroken amid the roar of her own past. And here silence shifts once again. It ceases to be only inward sanctuary and becomes outward radiance. People sense it without understanding. They notice that she is no longer grasping for attention, no longer bending to fit roles, no longer shackled by fear of being misunderstood. She moves with gravity, not haste. Her silence says more than speeches ever could. I am whole, and I do not need your noise to complete me. This realization does not diminish attraction, it intensifies it. For the deepest allure is not need but freedom. Consider the magnetism of someone who needs nothing. It is terrifying and irresistible. Terrifying because it cannot be controlled, irresistible because it promises something rare, authenticity. She becomes the embodiment of what others secretly crave but rarely find, a presence that does not beg, does not chase, does not collapse. And in that authenticity, she awakens something dormant in those around her. They begin to wonder, what would it mean to stand that free? What would it mean to need no validation, to bow to no noise? She becomes less person, more initiation. This is the hidden gift silence offers. It turns the self into symbol. The queen becomes archetype in flesh, silent oracle walking among the restless. She teaches without speaking, provokes without effort, liberates without preaching. And those who cross her path are altered, whether they realize it or not. They begin to sense that their worth is not measured by constant output, that their presence does not require proof. They taste sovereignty in her silence, and once tasted, it cannot be forgotten. But this path demands a question of you now. What have you been silencing within yourself? Not the silence you show to others, but the silence you bury inside. The voice of intuition you ignore, the longing you deny, the truth you suffocate with words. True silence is not suppression. It is the opening of space where those buried truths can finally speak. If you fear that silence will swallow you, it is because you have not yet learned that within it lies your rebirth. The womb of transformation is always quiet. Imagine sitting alone, no distractions, no voices, no validation. At first, the silence feels heavy, suffocating. But slowly beneath the fear, you hear something else, the pulse of your own essence, steady, undeniable. This essence does not beg, does not crumble, does not vanish when left unseen. It waits, patient, knowing that silence has always been its crown. In that moment, you realize that the one you sought through noise was never outside of you. She was waiting in the quiet, ready to rise. This realization is the grand turning. Silence is no longer tool, no longer weapon, no longer even sanctuary. It is freedom, and freedom is irresistible. It is the crown no one can take, the magnetism that does not fade, the sovereignty that does not bend. Those who meet you in this silence will know they are in the presence of something unshakable, and those who cannot bear it will fall away, unable to withstand the weight of your truth. Either way, you remain whole. And beyond as freedom lies the final gift, choice. Silence has refined, purified, and crowned you. Now you choose. You no longer wait for validation, no longer crave approval. The world leans in, but you lean back, smiling, knowing the crown does not rest on their recognition, but on your own becoming. And the story does not end here, for silence holds one last revelation, the moment when choice becomes creation. Creation begins in silence. Every myth, every genesis, every cosmic unfolding whispers this truth. The universe itself was once still, a silent void before stars erupted into being. So it is with the queen who has claimed her crown. Her silence is not mere stillness now. It is seed-bed, fertile ground where new worlds gestate. What she chooses to create from that silence carries the weight of inevitability, for it is born not from noise or fear but from sovereignty. This is where attraction transcends. No longer does she wield silence merely to unsettle, to filter, or even to protect. She wields it to shape destiny. Words spoken after silence become law. Choices made from silence reshape her path. Relationships entered through silence bear gravity others cannot comprehend. Her silence has refined her discernment to the point where impulse no longer rules. Instead, each act becomes deliberate, echoing with power. This is the transformation Jung envisioned. The individual who becomes whole, no longer ruled by shadow but integrated with it, creating consciously. And yet creation demands responsibility. To wear silence as crown is to wield immense influence. Those who linger in her orbit will be changed, willingly or not. Her restraint teaches them patience. Her presence teaches them reverence. Her freedom teaches them courage. The danger lies in forgetting this influence, in using silence as weapon rather than womb. If silence becomes cruelty, it fractures. If it becomes manipulation, it poisons. But when silence remains rooted in authenticity, it heals. It is the pause before truth, the breath before revelation. Picture her now sitting in a circle of noise. Voices compete, opinions clash, desires jostle. Yet she waits, she listens. And when she finally speaks, the air stills. Not because she demanded attention, but because her silence prepared it. The queen does not waste syllables. She chooses them as carefully as jewels, offering them when the time is ripe. This is creation through silence, not passive, not absent, but deliberate. Her crown gleams brighter because she does not speak often, but when she does, the world shifts. And what of desire? Here lies the paradox of Jungian attraction. The more she grounds herself in silence, the more potent her magnetism becomes. Not because she withholds for strategy, but because she radiates wholeness. Desire craves wholeness. The fragmented seek in her the integration they cannot yet find within themselves. Her silence does not promise completion. It reveals it already exists within her. And so, the archetypal hunger intensifies. Men project their anima upon her. Women project their unlived sovereignty, all pulled by the gravity of her self-possession. She remains unmoved because she does not need their projections to know who she is. This is not a loneliness but a liberation, for she no longer seeks to be chosen, she chooses. Silence has burned away the compulsion to chase, to prove, to justify. What remains is pure agency. This agency terrifies those who crave control, but it liberates those who crave authenticity. Attraction becomes less about possession, more about reverence. To be near her is to feel possibility stir within, for she embodies what many suppress. The power of not needing, the power of being whole. The grand reward of this journey is not that silence makes her desirable, though it does. It is that silence makes her sovereign. The crown rests firmly now, not as burden but as natural extension of her essence. She does not need to announce it. Others sense it in the way she holds herself, in the calm that radiates, in the mystery that lingers even when she has left the room. Silence has crowned her with an authority no noise can rival, and with that authority, she shapes her reality on her own terms. And here you are, listening at the threshold of your own silence. Perhaps you have feared it, filled it, run from it. But now you see that silence is not absence, it is power. It is the space where you meet yourself, the forge where you burn illusions, the sanctuary where you heal, the womb where you create. To embrace it is to step into your own sovereignty. To resist it is to remain enslaved by noise. The choice lies before you, and only you can make it. So pause, let the noise fall away. Feel the silence wrap around you, heavy, regal, undeniable. Ask yourself, do you fear being unseen, or do you fear discovering how radiant you are when you no longer need to be seen? That question is the key. That silence is the crown, and when you finally place it upon your head, you will understand the truth. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses. Leave a comment below about the moment you realized your worth doesn't depend on anyone else. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.